Welcome back to the YouTube home for BamaOnLine.com. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BOL, alongside recruiting analyst. That's Joseph Hastings right there next to me. And then in that bottom prestigious center square, it is senior recruiting editor Andrew Bone, as we get you ready for a recruiting roundup with Bone and JoJo. Good morning, fellas. I take it's been maybe a little bit of a smoother Friday morning for you two than, say, particular golfer in the city of Louisville, Scotty Scheffler. Oof.
Yeah, I got a little nervous this morning. I dropped my kids off at daycare, and I'm coming home, and there's this huge roadblock, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna make it in time for our show this morning. I got a little nervous, and I was pretty close to the house, so I was like, maybe I'll pull over, but I kind of realized that it was just some construction. They let us go through. Didn't get arrested or anything like that. But so made it to the show. So glad to be here. And yeah, free Scotty. He's free, and looks like he's on his way
You're on the range.
to winning the PGA this weekend.
Yeah, probably just shoot 58 today up there at Valhalla, straight
That's
from
about what
detention.
I.
Yeah, that's what Joseph would do. Joseph would walk right up there and just smooth 13 under, something like that. But in all
Yeah,
seriousness,
56 or something. Yeah.
yeah, tragic set of events though up there in Louisville. There you go. In support of Scotty, Andrew with the 2024 Masters lid. Just a tragic morning, a wild morning in Valhalla. Here's to better things moving forward for everyone involved. And speaking of moving forward, guys, we got a lot of Alabama football recruiting to get into with you this morning. Hey, let's start with a 5-star wide receiver on campus this weekend. Andrew, what can you tell us about Quincy Porter? Sounds like another Northeast wide receiver that Alabama likes pretty good bit, I would think.
I think my favorite thing about the spring evaluation period is, you start talking about more kids that you hadn't really discussed previously, guys that hadn't, been to Tuscaloosa during, Coach DeBoer and his staff arrived in January. They had a junior day in February. Then you have spring practice where, you get a lot of top kids from around the country on campus, but you don't get every kid on campus during that time period. Once the spring evaluation period kind of kicked off and coaches were able to go out on the road, you go out and see a lot of kids that haven't been able to get to campus this spring. And Quincy Porter was one of those guys. And we were told probably about a week and a half or so ago that, hey, there's another kid up in New Jersey that Alabama really likes, that they're really going after, that they're really prioritizing. And it was Quincy Porter, who's the number one player in the state of New Jersey. Now, Alabama already has a commitment from the number 2 wide receiver in the state of New Jersey, and Latzia Brooks, who committed just about a month and a half ago too. But and now they're going after Quincy Porter, who's a little bit bigger. He's 6'3", 190 pounds. Had over 1,000 yards receiving last season. I think his yards per catch was pretty ridiculous. I think it was just over 22 yards per catch. So this is an intriguing prospect because you go back, you read a lot of the articles, you see the schools that are in high contention for him. Made a lot of visits to Michigan and Ohio State. Everybody kind of thinks those are the top 2 schools for him, and they very well could be. Oklahoma is another school that he took a visit to during the spring. So those 3 schools were all able to get him on campus. Alabama is going to be able to get him on campus this weekend, and it's just for an unofficial visit. So he can still take that official visit during the summer. Like I said, he only has 3. I think he only has 3 officials set for right now, so he can set a few more. I know Alabama would love to get him on the books this weekend, so this will be a big visit for him. And this isn't the first time he's been to Tuscaloosa. He visited last summer with the previous staff, so he knows a little bit about the campus, the program. But now he gets a chance to sit down with coaching staff, learn a little bit more about their program, and obviously, they'll certainly be selling the offense and the receivers that they've been able to put in the especially in this past NFL draft. So big visit for Quincy Porter this weekend, and certainly a new target that we're going to start discussing a little bit more at that wide receiver position. There's certainly some good ones out there that are going to be taking visits to Alabama this summer. And I know Joe had a great interview yesterday with one.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Joseph, in terms of that wide receiver room. Um, Maybe to some people, Quincy Porter, a newish name on Alabama's radar. As Andrew pointed out, there's been some interaction in the past for sure there, but one
Mhm.
that has resonated, especially here of late, closer to home in Caleb Cunningham. It sounds like the staff very much making him a priority. And we've seen that even here recently in terms of this coaching staff being out on the trail.
Yeah, Caleb Cunningham is a name that we've known about for a while now. Going back to the previous staff, took multiple visits last year, attended a game day, got back on campus on March 6th. That was a pivotal visit. You know, if you remember, he told BamaOnLine after that visit that he didn't want to leave. Alabama made it feel like home for him. It was his first time really getting to interact with the new staff on campus, even though they paid him a visit at his school back in January during the contact period. That March 6th visit was pivotal. A few weeks later, he would end up scheduling his official visit to Alabama for June 21st to the 23rd, which is an important weekend. You know, it's a weekend. I know there's a lot of big time weekends throughout the month of June for Alabama as it pertains to official visits, with the amount of prospects getting on campus, especially those first couple weekends. But when you're getting the weekend before the summer long dead period, the months long dead period during the summer, that's pretty pivotal because a couple days after Caleb wraps up that official visit to Alabama, there will be a 4-week dead period. His decision timeline is going to be after the season, so I think it probably would benefit Alabama more if he ends up making that decision during the summer. But right now, Bama gets the last summer official visit. We recently spoke with him after Jamarcus Shepard visited him last week. Has nothing but great things to say about Coach Shepard, Coach DeBoer as well, who followed up with him this week too to talk about that conversation with Coach Shepard. Says Bama is high on the list, and I'd encourage everyone to go check out that article on BamaOnLine and see what he had to say. But he's definitely highly considering Alabama, and the new staff has made a very strong impression on him.
Yeah, we'll get more into Alabama coaches on the road coming up here in a little bit. But Andrew, just when you think maybe the portal for now has taken a respite, got to ask you about Khalil Jacobs, long associated with the Alabama coaching staff, especially Kane Womack, his former coach down there at South Alabama. What can you tell us about that situation right now with Khalil Jacobs?
Yeah, so as of right now, he is currently set to visit Alabama this weekend. Obviously, it's something that we are continuing to update and follow to see if that visit continues to take place. There was a few previous visits that were scheduled to Alabama that he decided to push back. I think it's probably a little bit more Alabama decided to push things back. When he entered the transfer portal, I believe it was around April the 26th, sometime around then. He talked to Joseph, I believe, the same day that he entered the portal, and said that the only coach that he had connected with since entering the portal was Kane Womack, and he was going to visit Alabama. He was planning on getting down there or up there the following week. Ends up going over to Auburn on Tuesday. Was supposed to visit Mizzou and then go to Alabama, the following weekend. Those visits did not happen. It's been a couple of weeks. Now he ended up going to Ole Miss this past week, not this past week, this past Monday. And now he is going to be coming to Tuscaloosa on Saturday. He's supposed to be at Missouri today for an official visit. So we'll see if that visit happens. We told BamaOnLine subscribers the other day after Gino Vandermark committed, everybody thought, okay, well, they're done. Yeah, they filled all their needs. They're at their scholarship limit. Yeah, they can't take anymore. We told everybody, we said, hey, there's still an opportunity here for Alabama to take another player. The door's not closed. I know we kind of try to keep track as much as we can on the scholarship numbers, but the people who actually know what's going on with the scholarships, is Alabama. Those are the people that work inside the athletic facility. They know exactly who they can bring in, who they can't bring in, and they've still continued to communicate with Khalil Jacobs. Now, so I don't think it's a situation where it's any sort of demanding NIL funds or scholarships. I think it's just a situation where Alabama's trying to kind of figure some things out. There's some things that are probably not being talked about, not being discussed, and they're keeping those things kind of private. But
so, Andrew, can you at least comment on whether or not this is just totally a numbers situation, or is it? I think you're maybe pointing to some other extenuating circumstances
yeah,
involved here.
I think there's some other situations kind of going on. I don't think it's certainly. I don't think it's necessarily a numbers situation.
Gotcha.
I think if Alabama can kind of get things going in the right direction, they'll take his commitment. So, like I said, we will see if they decide to bring him in this weekend. And as of right now, as far as we know, they are bringing him in for a visit on Saturday. So we are going to continue to watch and monitor that closely on BOL. But this is a kid that Alabama really likes. I mean, they wouldn't still be talking to him if they didn't like him. Kane Womack knows all about him. He wouldn't be recruiting him, talking to him as soon as he entered the portal if they weren't interested. You kind of look back in, I think it was January. Khalil Jacobs entered the portal in January, then jumped out of it, went back to South Alabama for a semester or for the spring semester. Now he's back in. Other schools have been involved: Ole Miss, Mizzou, Auburn. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how this all unfolds over the course. I would imagine, since he's taking the trip to Mizzou right now, the trip to Alabama this weekend, we will probably see a final decision from him next week. And hopefully Alabama will have their own final decision on what they're able to do. And I think if they do decide to make a big push there, that they're going to be very tough to beat.
As you can see here, I'm sharing the screen with our update, Andrew's update, and this is an example of why you should be at BamaOnLine.com right now. His Alabama weekend notebook, Tide hosting visitors, targets, reveal finalists, plus new offers. Man, this is must read stuff if you're an Alabama fan.
It's a targets reveal finalist, not reveals, but we'll fix that here in a second.
Targets reveal final. Yeah, I mean, look, we're not big J school guys like JoJo, Andrew and I. So what do you expect? I mean, just be glad it got up, right, Andrew? I mean, it got off the ground. Seriously though, great information right there. You want to check that out right now at BamaOnLine.com. And of course, the Roundtable, our premium message board. So much tremendous interaction with folks like JoJo and Andrew, Tim Watts, Charlie Potter, Clint Lamb, Jimmy Stein. The list goes on and on. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, we hope you'll do that right now. Hit that subscribe button for us. Hit that like button for us while you're at it. That would help us out. We would appreciate that. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all of our YouTube content as it drops right here on the YouTube home for Bama Online. Hey, let's get back to coaches on the road, guys, for the Alabama staff during this spring evaluation period. And Joseph, I'm going to start with you because I want to know about some of these defensive guys that are out there. And a couple of them, obviously, Alabama has an extensive background with, perhaps to the extent of previously being committed to Alabama before maybe jumping to another program. What can you tell us about some of those guys?
Yeah, you mentioned Javion Hilson there out of Cocoa in Florida. Javion Hilson's interesting. We've talked about his story before about how he ended up committing to Alabama after winning a state championship game, flipping right after Nick Saban's retirement or in the days following, but still maintaining interest in Alabama, getting on campus in March, scheduling an official visit for June 7th through the 9th. Alabama paid him a visit. It was Freddie Roach and Kane Womack this week. Got to see him on campus. He's one of those wolf position targets that we've been talking about. Even though Alabama has a bunch of inside linebackers committed, you want to be able to address that wolf position, maybe get a guy or two there that they're looking at. Dawson Merritt, too, received a visit from Alabama. Christian Robinson, outside linebackers coach, and Womack paid to see him a visit on Thursday morning. shortly before Nebraska saw him. If you recall, he's down to 2, Alabama and Nebraska right now, as an official visit set up with Alabama as well. We'll see how things kind of play out there. It's interesting how his schedule ended up taking place, just because he was previously supposed to visit Alabama on an official the weekend of April 19th, ended up making that a multi-day unofficial visit, preserving that official visit for later. That was key for Alabama. And then he also took a visit to Nebraska shortly thereafter. The Cornhuskers are obviously making him a priority, as is Alabama. I think what's interesting there is, going back over to that previous connection with the staff, where he got offered by the Washington staff in October, that really meant something to him, that Washington was one of those early schools that took a chance on him, decided to extend an offer. That's kind of resonated with him. And, when you talk about Alabama recruiting now, it's a little bit of the best of both worlds, right? Where you get a Freddie Roach, a Robert Gillespie, maintaining those relationships that they had with prospects like A.K. Deer, Antonio Coleman, leading to a flip from Auburn to Alabama, some of those key relationships, but then also having the Washington relationships carry over too, which is evident in the case of Dawson Merritt. Alabama also got to visit Justin Hill, who's out of Winton Woods High School in Ohio. He also has an official visit scheduled for next month, another Wolf position target. So, that's kind of been the theme for this week. Alabama going out, seeing those Wolf guys, letting them know that they're a priority. The spring evaluation period is wrapping up here soon, so it's important to go see those priority targets before it wraps up. But yeah, Alabama's done an excellent job of hitting the road so far.
Andrew, how about some of the guys whose responsibility is to keep the Wolves at bay? Let's talk some offensive line with you, because there seems to be a sense that this is going to eventually be a very, very impressive offensive line haul for this Alabama staff. But where does it kind of sit with some of those guys right now?
Yeah, I mean, they've seen a lot of their top targets over the course of the last 2 weeks. It seems like they saw pretty much every guy over the course of the last 2 weeks, minus like Jackson Lloyd, which they saw about 2 weeks ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago. But I think that this week they go into the Northeast, see Michael Carroll, number 2 interior offensive lineman in the country, out of Pennsylvania. He had a great interview with his father after the visit. They're going to be coming back down for a third time on the 7th for his official visit. I think this is a very close race between Alabama and Michigan right now. Penn State just offered his younger brother, who's a 2027 wide receiver. And, his dad played at Michigan. Mike Carroll was a linebacker at Michigan. I mean, I know that I didn't know his father's going to be watching this at Penn State, not Michigan. Sorry, Mike. But yeah, I mean, I think that Alabama's done a really good job recruiting him. They've got some big visits coming up. It's going to be interesting to kind of see how that all unfolds. Another guy that was seen this week, Malachi Goodman, out of New Jersey. Another top kid that they really like a lot. That's going to be coming in on June the 14th. And then, over the course of the last week, they saw Micah DuBose out of Viger High School, which Micah came in for a visit a couple weeks ago. Joseph had a really good interview with him at BOL. I think Alabama's really kind of surged with him over the course of the last few months. So it's going to be interesting to see how this offensive line class unfolds, because there's probably about 10 names that we've been talking about. There's probably 3 or 4 of those guys that we feel a lot better about. Now, we're starting to see some that have eliminated Alabama. Andrew Babaloa out of Kansas announced his official visits on Thursday. Alabama was not getting one of those. And we've talked about him as a guy that Alabama liked. They recruited, that they went and saw, that we felt like they might have a really good chance to get an official visit out of him, but never really felt like Alabama was in that top group for him. So, as long as you continue to be in the running for the guys that you feel like you got a really good chance to land, Jackson Lloyd, Mike Carroll, Micah DuBose, you get those guys on campus again before they make their decision. It's going to be really important. But they've got some other visits coming up as well. So I think Coach Kapilovich has done a really good job, better job than I kind of expected right out of the gate, because if you remember, a lot of the staff arrived in January. Coach Cap didn't arrive until late February because he was coming in to replace Scott Huff, who was originally the offensive line coach who took the Seattle Seahawks job when that became available. So Coach Cap has done a really great job developing relationships. Of course, some of those relationships were from when he was at Michigan State the last couple of seasons, like Mike Carroll. And I think that certainly helped with some of these guys moving forward. And we'll see how it all unfolds over the course, really over the course of the next month, because these official visits are about to really hit. The final weekend of official visits is June the 21st. And then a lot of these kids are going to be making decisions in July, in August, before the start of their senior season. And I think Alabama, as of right now, probably looking to sign about 4 offensive linemen. I think they're going to do that, and I think that they're going to really hit on some big targets over the next couple months.
Yeah, you and Joseph had a couple of great updates. I wanted to ask you first, JoJo, the interaction you had with Jackson Lloyd's parents for an update that you did for us at BOL. What did you kind of take away from that time you had with them?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit earlier about just those relationships carrying over from Washington. I mean, it's really none more evident than with Jackson Lloyd and his recruitment. The Lloyd family got to visit Washington twice last year, once for a camp, then they returned for the Oregon game, and they were very impressed, especially by that second trip in October. By the interactions with the entire coaching staff, specifically Courtney Morgan and Kalen DeBoer. One thing, and I had separate conversations with both his mom and his dad. And so they didn't know like what each one were talking about. And they said the exact same thing when it came to Kalen DeBoer, which is that when you're in the room with him and talking with him, it's like, you're the only one like in the room with him. Like he's talking directly to you, not focused on anything else. And he gives 100% of his attention to you. That's something that really stood out to them and that they really appreciate. And Courtney Morgan, Jackson Lloyd's dad said, if I had to start a business, Courtney Morgan would be the first person I'd go to and hire. And you can see why, with how well he's able to manage everything, all the responsibilities he's had, not only at Alabama, but his previous stops. He's made a really strong impression, not only on the recruits, but their parents as well. So, they talked about Courtney, about Coach DeBoer, and also Coach Cap as well, and how he's been able to build that relationship early on. Lloyd's dad told me, he said, yeah, Jackson's a little bit of a reserved kid, doesn't really, talk too much, but kind of opens up with Coach Cap. And, especially during that visit that Bone alluded to a couple weeks ago, where they were able to talk with each other at his school, really kind of opened up, had a great conversation with him. And, Kapilovich has done an excellent job over these past couple of months. That's a relationship that's a little bit different than like a Mike Carroll, where Bone talked about, where Mike was being pursued by Kapilovich at Michigan State. Even got an offer from Baylor during his brief time there. So there was a lot of familiarity. Not necessarily the case with Lloyd, but Cap has done an exceptional job so far over these past few months. So yeah, that's a long interview, but I think worth the read just to get that perspective, that in-depth look at how Alabama runs things.
It sounds like Cap is an and one, is what I call him. He's not just accomplished offensive line coach, and that's huge because that's a premium staff spot. And you got to have the right guy as your offensive line coach. But then if that guy can connect on the recruiting trail, now you've really got something. And Andrew, you talked about this in connection with Mike Carroll, and Joseph hit on it there. The previous history obviously helps, but there seems to be a lot of carryover based on what you were able to gather from Mike Carroll's father too.
Yeah, I mean, I've had an opportunity to talk to Mike several times over the course of the last 2 months. They had such a great time down in Tuscaloosa, the first time, and then again when they went down for the A-Day game. People remember, people saw on social media. This was a kid that ran into Landon Dickerson at the Philadelphia airport, and he's bigger than Landon Dickerson. I mean, he looks like a very physically impressive offensive lineman. I mean, he is 6'6.5", 310 pounds, and I mean, he holds it together pretty well. So I think Alabama is extremely excited about him. Now, he earned an offer from Coach Cap last summer at Michigan State. So he worked out with Coach Cap at Michigan State. It was kind of funny when Coach Cap visited him on Wednesday. Mike was wearing an Alabama shirt, and he was wearing his Michigan State gym shorts that he got when he was at the Michigan State camp last summer. So the only thing he was missing was the Baylor socks, because Coach Cap spent about a month at Baylor before he went to before he got hired at Alabama. So that relationship goes back a long way. And Coach Cap told Mike last summer, he said, I don't know what, because obviously there was a lot going on with Michigan State with the situation with Mel Tucker, and Coach Cap wasn't really sure what his position was going to be, where he was going to be the following year, but told Mike back then, he said, no matter where I am, you're my guy. You're the guy that I'm going to continue to recruit. I'm going to offer you wherever I go. And he stuck to it. So that relationship has been very significant in the recruiting process. Courtney Morgan has also played a major role there, as Joseph just talked about with Jackson Lloyd and his family. Courtney Morgan has also connected really well with Mike. And one other thing that I'll mention as far as Mike Carroll that they really like is the relationship that he's already starting to build with players on the Alabama football team. He connected well with Joe Ionata during the visit for A-Day. Parents also connected well with some other parents down there. So that does play a role. That plays an important role. And they're, like I said, they're going to be back June the 7th. He's got some other visits coming up. Got Georgia on the 31st. Georgia's trying to kind of come in late. I'd be surprised if they end up getting them, but Michigan's going to have them on campus on the 14th, and then the Penn State visit on the 21st. And Penn State legacy, they offered his brother. I don't want to say Liam is not a great prospect, because I do think he's going to have a ton of offers in that 27 class, but Penn State may have thrown that offer out there just to try to entice Mike a little bit. I think that there's going to be a lot of other schools that end up offering Liam down the road as well. So we will see what happens with Mike Carroll. But man, he's about as good looking as an offensive lineman as you'll see in the entire country.
Massive Mike, Mount Mike. Yeah, I think any of those apply to Mike Carroll. So let's talk about the upcoming official visit run, guys. And Derek Smith, an Alabama commitment. Very talented guy. Can play on either side of the ball. Joseph, I know you had a chance to catch up with him here recently. I guess there's an official visit perhaps to Auburn on the horizon for Derek Smith. Any reason for concern if you're an Alabama fan from that perspective? And what else have you been able to gather from it?
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe that there's a reason for concern. He does have that official visit to Alabama scheduled for May 31st to June 2nd. Auburn will follow the weekend after. Look, I mean, Auburn is understandably pushing very hard for Derek Smith. He's one of the top prospects in the state. There was some confidence before his commitment to Alabama on the Auburn end. So, and he told me that Auburn's the school pushing the hardest for him outside of Alabama, pushing the hardest to flip him. So it's not really too much of a surprise that he was going to take, an official visit there. He's talked about it before, been pretty open and honest about it, but, he's on Alabama's commitment list. And, Colin Hitchler in particular has done a really great job of establishing a relationship with him over these past few months since his arrival on the staff. And then Freddie Roach, that carryover with that relationship. Roach has been in his recruitment for a long time, one of the first ones to really start recruiting him. And, he was a key reason why he ended up committing to Alabama at the time that he did. Kind of similar, to Antonio Coleman in a sense, where, you have a new staff, a mostly new staff, but with Kalen DeBoer and company, but you have that, that one, coach that you can familiarize yourself with, that you have a lot of trust in, and it led to 2 big time commitments for Alabama in March. And, Coach Roach is still continuing to stay in contact with Derek. So yeah, we have a story on him on BamaOnLine.com right now. You can check out, but yeah, Derek seems to be pretty solid with his commitment to Alabama.
And, Andrew, we've talked about running backs, it seems like every week here on the program, and seems like some pretty big news, right? A 5-star running back committed elsewhere right now, set an official visit with Alabama.
Yeah, that's right. AK Deer out of Quitman, Mississippi, has been a big target for Alabama for a long time. I mean, this is a kid that was offered by the previous staff. Went to a couple games last season. Has always expressed very high interest in Alabama, and then this spring ends up committing early to Ole Miss, and don't say we never thought he was going to completely shut it down. We thought he was going to continue to take some visits. And Robert Gillespie, Alabama's running backs coach, I think pretty much the first day on the recruiting trail this spring, went out and saw AK Deer. And of course, we were able to get it confirmed that he had set the official visit to Alabama for June the 14th. So huge to get him back on campus. Now, he's a Mississippi kid. He's committed to Ole Miss. Those are always tough kids to pull away. But the fact that he is going to come back, take his official visit, give Alabama a chance, that's all they're really looking for. They want an opportunity to show him what he can do in their system. What they can do for him. And I think that just having an opportunity to host them at least one last time is great. There was another kid that has set up an official visit to Alabama. That's top 100 running back Jordan Davidson out of Mater Dei High School, which we're all familiar with. Home of Bryce Young. Alabama signed a couple players last year. Xavier Brown, Domani Jackson transferred over from USC. So that school's been pretty big pipeline for not just Alabama, but a lot of schools throughout the country. And Jordan Davidson going to come back on May the 31st. That's going to be a big visit for him because I think as of right now, Alabama probably on the outside. Now he's got a top 4, but I think Alabama probably in that. It might even be in that 3 or 4 range. They might be 2, but I think as of right now, a number 1 school heading into the summer for Jordan Davidson is Ohio State. They've kind of been at the front of his recruitment for the last couple months, and they're going to get the last visit on June the 21st. So getting him on campus on May the 31st for the first official, you get a chance to set the bar very high, make a really strong impression, and see how these other visits turn out this month. But Tim, our fearless leader, not here this week, but as he always says, and I've always felt this way too, you always kind of either want to get that first visit or the last visit. Now, the in between visits are okay, but you get that first visit and you really get a chance to just set that bar extremely high and see how it shakes out. Of course, the last visits are always good too. Get them on campus right before they make a decision, but it doesn't always matter that way. I think that there's a lot of running backs that are going to be coming onto campus this summer. They still are looking to add one more guy. They have Anthony Turbo Rogers out of Carver High School in Montgomery, who's been committed since last summer. We're almost at the 1-year anniversary of Anthony Rogers' commitment. I think he committed on June the 1st last year, and he stayed true with his commitment, even though there's some other schools that are continuing to try to pry him away from Alabama. But they've got some really good running back prospects that are going to be on campus this summer, starting on May the 31st and all the way through June the 21st.
Well, with that in mind, as far as the importance of the first visit or the last visit, when I look at the month of June, guys, give me that one weekend right now as it sits that you kind of have circled as the weekend, understanding they're all going to be big. I mean, they're all big. But it's kind of like a music festival lineup, right? You see the lineup when it's released, you go, oh, wow, Friday is the day or Sunday's the day. We'll start with you, Andrew. What kind of jumps out at you in terms of the month of June coming up?
I think it's got to be June 21st weekend. And there's going to be one guy that's going to come in midweek. That's David Sanders, 5-star out of Charlotte, who we've heard Alabama had a great visit with recently, has expressed high interest in Alabama. But, Alabama's probably on the outside looking in. So they're going to have him on campus leading up to that June 21st. But June 21st is that's going to be that weekend before the dead period. Dead period hits on June the 25th. And that dead period is a whole month. So June the 25th all the way until July the 25th. We potentially are going to see a lot of decisions during that time frame. So you got some of your main guys that are going to be on campus. Joseph talked about Caleb Cunningham earlier. He's going to be in town. Dejon Lee, 5-star corner who just announced his top 4 schools, which we expect it's really a top 2 with Alabama and Georgia heading into the summer. You got Derek Meadows out of Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas, Josiah Sharma, Micah DeBose. I mean, it is a really big weekend on June the 21st. And I expect that we're going to see some more names that are going to get added to these weekends. Because as of right now, there's 30 confirmed official visitors between May the 31st and June the 21st. They can have 57 total official visitors. So who else is going to be added over the course of the next couple of weeks? We'll have to see. But that's probably the weekend that I'm really looking forward to seeing, not only because it's a big weekend, but it's the weekend before the the dead period, and we finally get a little bit of a breather after the summer camps and the official visit season.
A lot of sowing has taken place, guys. So when does the reaping really crank back up? I would think perhaps June could be a month for that. And with that, I'm going to ask you first, Joseph Hastings. Commitment watch. Who is that? Who are those 1 or 2 guys maybe that you have at the top of your list right now for the Alabama class for 2025?
I'm going to cheat here and go with Keelan Russell just because, I talked about him earlier last time we were on, talking about him as a guy that Alabama really likes. They saw last month, he's going to be getting on campus for that May 31st weekend for an official visit. We'll see what goes on there. Oregon recently took that official visit to Ole Miss as well. So, there's some other schools in play there. But, yeah, he's one we're keeping an eye on. I don't want to take Bones' answer here. I'm pretty sure I know who he's going to go with, so I'll leave this one to him. But also maybe Mike Carroll. I don't expect a decision anytime soon before his official visits start. But I'm really paying attention to those back-to-back weekends there, June 7th and June 14th, where he has Alabama and then Michigan. Bone talked about, do you want the first or do you want the last? That's an interesting situation because the schools that are the first and the last, I wouldn't project them to right now. I do think it's an Alabama-Michigan battle, those 2 at the top. I mean, he's even said as much that those are his top 2 right now. So it's interesting that those 2 are the ones that are sandwiched in between there. So I'm really paying attention to how those play out. And, he's somebody who could potentially end up in this class. And, we talked about that relationship with Coach Cap there and then just the strong impression that the entire staff has made on him. So, yeah, those would be the 2 that I'd highlight.
JoJo says he left your guy alone, Andrew. So did he, or is it
I
maybe
don't know who
someone
he's
else?
talking about. I mean, we have talked about a lot of California kids, throughout the year. Somebody asked the other day on BOL, do we expect Alabama to sign over 4.5 players from the state of California in this year's cycle? Wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think this is a year that they could sign, 5 Californians to this class, and Jackson Lloyd's probably the guy that I think our whole staff probably feels the most comfortable with as far as predictions heading into the summer. Top 30 offensive, top 30 overall player in the country, one of the top offensive linemen in the country out of Carmel High School in California. We got to take a visit out there and evaluate him and spend a week out there. But that's certainly a kid that we I think we feel pretty confident heading into this next month. He just got invited to play in the All-American Bowl as well this week, so that was a huge honor for him. I could probably go a lot of different ways here, but I'm going to stick with the state of California, and I'm going to go Dejon Lee, 5-star cornerback out of Mission Viejo High School. This kid that just announced his top 4 schools: Alabama, Georgia, Washington, and Texas A&M. Kind of surprised that USC didn't make the cut, because we've heard for a long time that USC always felt like they were going to be in the race regardless of the situation. But he did not include them in his top 4 yesterday. As of right now, he plans on taking all of his official visits before making that decision. He was back in Tuscaloosa the weekend after the A-Day game, which I thought was really significant, because you're not on campus when there's 100 other kids in town. You get a lot more one-on-one time with Coach DeBoer, with the staff, Mo Lindquist, defensive backs coach Kane Womack. You get a chance to be around a lot of the players when they're not out there basically on the field are getting ready for the spring game. You get a chance to really familiarize yourself with those guys and build relationships. And there's guys on on the team that he knows, like Zabian Brown, Caleb Odom. He's recruiting him pretty hard. So it's going to be interesting to see how his recruitment unfolds, because it does look like an Alabama Georgia battle heading into the summer. He's got a Georgia visit coming up, but Alabama gets that last one. And we mentioned it earlier, June the 21st, being able to get him on campus that last weekend before the dead period is going to be really huge, I think, for Alabama in the recruitment of Dejoun Lee. But there's a lot of guys out there that feel like we like Alabama's chances heading into the summer, but official visits can change things, good and bad. I think that I always use this example. Tyler Booker, a few years ago during his recruitment, he had Florida and Georgia as his top two schools, and he was adamant. He kept saying, "I'm choosing between I'm choosing between Georgia and Florida." I mean, those were his top two schools heading into the summer. Then he takes that visit to Alabama, and it was just like over with. I mean, it's like there's nowhere else I want to be than Alabama. And I remember interviewing him, the day after he got home, and I told someone, I said, "There's no way this guy is not going to Alabama after that interview," and it happened. Obviously, he's had a great career so far in Tuscaloosa, but that's just kind of the way that recruiting goes. Once official visits start, anything can happen. Alabama could be fifth on someone's list heading into the summer. They can move to number one. They could be number one on someone's list. They can move to number 3 or 4. So just have to kind of let things play out. But it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot going on BamaOnline.com. We're going to be updating it every single day. The month of June is just absolutely bonkers with the official visits, but it's also camp season. I think there's 8 camps in the month of June. Coach DeBoer's first high school football camp. So we're going to see new offers. We're going to see guys that are going to move up the recruiting board. We're going to see guys that are going to move down the recruiting board. We're going to see a lot, probably several new offers, mostly to underclassmen, but we're going to see some new offers in that 2025 class as well. And, I'm really intrigued to see who kind of emerges and, becomes a major target for Alabama after summer camp. Because there were a few guys last year that emerged. Steve Buamua out of Canada kind of emerged. Then you had Red Morgan, who got an offer from Alabama after camp, who's obviously been a stud so far. Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. earned an offer at camp last summer, and I posted this the other day. Amari Cooper was even a guy who had to earn an offer from Alabama during summer camp during his senior season, or right before his senior season. So just because these kids get offered a little bit later than maybe a guy that gets offered in the spring doesn't make them, any less. I mean, if you get offered this time of the year, you're a legit player. It's kind of, December when you might start looking at maybe some plan B options, but every guy that you offer right now is a guy that you like, a guy that is a plan A option for your program.
And if you are new to our YouTube channel right here, we'd like to offer you the opportunity to go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would greatly appreciate it. Hit a like for us if you don't mind as well. Also, hit the notifications bell. That way you get all of our YouTube content as it drops right here on the YouTube home for BOL. And of course, the home base, BamaOnline.com, the Roundtable, our premium message board. That's where you're going to get this type of intel and more. This is just scratching the surface here on our YouTube channel. You're going to get a whole lot more with us at BamaOnline.com. Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings, Tim Watts, Charlie Potter, Clint Lamb, Jimmy Stein, myself, and legions of Alabama fans right there waiting to interact with you on the Roundtable at BamaOnline.com. Guys, great stuff. Can't thank you enough as we wind up another week here in the month of May. Joseph Hastings, Andrew Bone, thanks again, guys.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching the show today. Give us a like. We'll see you on the BOL Roundtable this weekend.
Absolutely. And so, for Joseph Hastings and Andrew Bone, Travis Reier, thanking you once again. And until next time, so long, everybody.